Normandy, June 1944. The advance inland from Omaha Beach just after 400 hours was proving a brutal grind, hedgerow by hedgerow. American infantry, already blooded by the landings, pushed through the pre-dawn gloom, their confidence buoyed by superior numbers and the thunder of distant naval artillery. Then, from a seemingly innocuous cluster of farm buildings, a series of sharp, almost toy-like cracking sounds erupted, followed by a sudden, devastating sweep of fire that tore through the lead platoon, felling 3 men instantly and sending the rest scrambling for cover. The stakes were immediately clear. This was not the expected resistance from heavy machine guns, but something altogether more insidious and unexpected. Sergeant Frank Miller, a veteran of North Africa and Sicily, commanding the 3rd Squad, peered through the dense foliage, trying to make sense of the new threat. He had expected the familiar staccato of the MG-42, a sound that, while terrifying, was at least predictable in its rhythm and effect. This new sound, however, was higher-pitched, almost a rapid-fire popping, and the tracer rounds seemed to come from positions too low and too small to house standard German crew-served weapons. His initial assessment, shared by the men around him, was that they were facing some desperate, last-ditch effort, perhaps antiquated light machine guns, or even submachine guns, firing on full automatic from concealed positions. The small size of the muzzle flashes, barely perceptible in the fading darkness, reinforced this dangerous underestimation. The initial bursts, though brief, had been remarkably accurate, concentrating fire on the exposed flanks of the advancing line. Damage reports from the forward elements, relayed back through the company radio, indicated multiple penetrations on standard-issue M1 helmets and chest wounds that suggested a velocity far exceeding that of a typical pistol-caliber weapon. Miller, observing the effects on his own men, noted the clean, almost surgical entry wounds, devoid of the ragged tearing associated with larger calibers. This contradicted the initial, dismissive assessment of the enemy's armaments. The weapon responsible, though unseen, was the German MG-34-42 in its Einheitsmaschinengewehr configuration, firing the 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser cartridge. Its high cyclic rate, often exceeding 1,200 rounds per minute for the MG-42, produced a continuous, tearing sound rather than distinct shots, earning it the grim nickname Hitler's buzzsaw. The compact nature of its design, particularly when mounted on a lightweight bipod, allowed for deployment in positions that would be impossible for bulkier Allied heavy machine guns. Its effective range, even with iron sights, extended to 800 meters, enabling devastating suppressive fire from concealed positions. Allied intelligence estimates, based on pre-invasion reconnaissance and captured equipment from earlier campaigns, had largely focused on the 88 mm anti-tank and anti-aircraft guns, and the formidable panzer divisions. The pervasive and adaptable role of the German general-purpose machine gun, particularly its deployment in fortified positions, had been consistently undervalued in strategic planning. The sheer volume of fire these weapons could generate, combined with the discipline of German infantry in constructing mutually supporting fields of fire, meant that even a single MG-42 could halt an entire company advance, inflicting disproportionate casualties. The ideological emphasis on rapid, overwhelming firepower within the Wehrmacht doctrine manifested in these weapons, designed for both offensive and defensive roles, capable of being moved and redeployed with surprising speed. The morning light, slowly piercing the heavy cloud cover, would soon reveal the true nature of the resistance. But for now, the unseen, rapid-fire weapons continued their work, chipping away at American resolve with every high-pitched burst. The initial laughter, a brittle sound against the sharp November air, died in the throats of the forward observation team. They had watched the distant German positions, nestled amongst the skeletal trees of the Hurtgen, for nearly an hour, their field glasses fixed on the peculiar, stubby barrels that protruded from hastily dug emplacements. Sergeant Miller, a veteran of North Africa, had even quipped about the enemy resorting to pea shooters. As the first faint thump, thump, thump echoed across the valley, then came the whistle, not the familiar, heavy shriek of a mortar round, but a sound like 1,000 angry hornets, growing in intensity. The first rounds struck the snow-dusted ground with an impact far exceeding their diminutive appearance. Instead of the expected cratering or the dull thud of a standard rifle bullet, the earth erupted in a spray of frozen soil and splinters, accompanied by a sharp, metallic crack. A private, exposed on a slight rise, screamed once, a choked, gurgling sound, and crumpled, his helmet ringing as it bounced down the slope. The others, momentarily stunned, instinctively dropped to the frozen earth, their faces pressed into the icy crust. This was no ordinary small arms fire. The German weapon, later identified by captured ordnance as the Maschinenkarabiner 42 or MKB-42, fired in intermediate 7.92 by 33 mm Kurz cartridge. Unlike the standard 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser round, which was designed for long-range rifle engagements, the Kurz round was optimized for a more compact weapon, sacrificing some muzzle velocity and range for a significant reduction in recoil and overall cartridge weight. This allowed for controllable automatic fire from a shoulder-fired weapon, a concept fundamentally different from the squad-level machine guns the Americans were accustomed to. Damage reports from the engagement that day, later compiled by the 28th Infantry Division, indicated an unusually high number of non-fatal but debilitating wounds to extremities and torso. The smaller projectile, traveling at approximately 690 meters per second, possessed sufficient energy to penetrate standard-issue M1 helmets at close to medium ranges and consistently perforated the M1943 field jacket and its underlying layers. The wounds were often ragged, with bone fragmentation and significant tissue damage, suggesting a high degree of yaw or tumbling upon impact, a characteristic often observed with lighter, shorter projectiles. The tactical implications were immediate and devastating. American doctrine relied heavily on the M1 Garand rifle, a semi-automatic weapon firing a powerful .3006 round, and the Browning automatic rifle, BAR, a heavy, crew-served automatic weapon. Both were effective, but the Garand's rate of fire was limited to 8 rounds before reloading, and the BAR, while capable of sustained automatic fire, was cumbersome and difficult to maneuver in close-quarter, forested terrain. The German MKB-42H, in contrast, offered a soldier the ability to lay down suppressing fire at a rate of approximately 500 rounds per minute with a 30-round detachable box magazine, effectively bridging the gap between a rifle and a light machine gun. The initial engagement in the Hurtgen Forest revealed a critical disparity in infantry firepower. The Germans, with their toy-sized guns, had introduced a new paradigm of close-range, high-volume automatic fire, catching the American forces unprepared for the sudden concentrated lethality. The forest, already a labyrinth of death, now amplified the effectiveness of these new weapons, turning every thicket and ridge into a potential ambush point. The laughter was gone, replaced by a grim understanding. The first intact example reached the Ordnance Proving Grounds at Aberdeen in late November 1943, still bearing the mud of the Italian front. Its silhouette, even stripped of its bipod and ammunition drum, remained deceptively small, barely larger than a standard infantry rifle. Initial assessments, based on visual inspection alone, reiterated the field reports, a compact, almost toy-like weapon, seemingly out of place amidst the heavier, more robust Allied designs. Disassembly revealed a different story. The receiver, machined from high-grade steel, exhibited tolerances far exceeding typical mass production standards. Its internal components, a marvel of interlocking levers and cams, spoke to a design philosophy prioritizing precision over brute force. The bolt, a multi-lug rotating design, locked directly into the barrel extension, a feature more commonly found on heavy machine guns. Distributing recoil forces efficiently and contributing to exceptional accuracy, the barrel, a mere 256 millimeters in length, was cold hammer forged, a process known for producing exceptionally durable and accurate rifling. Its bore, a tight 7.92 millimeters, was optimized for the 7.92 by 33 millimeter Kurz cartridge, a round specifically developed for this weapon. This cartridge, shorter and less powerful than the standard rifle round, allowed for a higher rate of fire and reduced recoil, making the weapon controllable in automatic fire. Production logs, later captured from the Hainel Verka, indicated a daily output of 800 such barrels by early 1944, a testament to the specialized machinery and skilled labor dedicated to this component. The gas system, a long-stroke piston operating above the barrel, provided reliable cycling even under adverse conditions. Its simplicity belied its effectiveness, a direct contrast to the more complex direct impingement systems favored by some Allied designs. The recoil spring, housed within the buttstock, allowed for a compact receiver and a straight-line recoil path, further contributing to the weapon's stability during sustained fire. This elegant integration of components reduced overall length without compromising mechanical function. The fire selector, a simple cross-bolt mechanism, allowed for instantaneous switching between semi-automatic and fully automatic modes. This dual capability, a significant departure from standard submachine gun or rifle designs, gave the individual soldier unprecedented tactical flexibility. Damage reports from frontline units consistently cited the weapon's ability to deliver accurate single shots at range, followed by devastating bursts in close quarters. The weapon's overall weight, a mere 4.6 kilograms loaded, contrasted sharply with the 10.5 kilograms of a Browning automatic rifle or the 9.3 kilograms of a Bren gun. This reduction in mass, achieved through careful material selection and design optimization, allowed infantrymen to carry more ammunition and maneuver with greater agility. The ergonomic pistol grip and foregrip, molded from a durable phenolic resin, provided a secure and comfortable hold, even in gloved hands. The 30-round detachable box magazine, curved to accommodate the tapered cartridge, fed reliably, a critical factor in sustained combat. Its robust construction, stamped from heavy-gauge steel, withstood rough handling and repeated reloading. Interrogation files from captured German ordnance officers revealed that magazine reliability was a primary design criterion, informed by early war experiences with less robust designs. The weapon's effective range, documented in captured German training manuals as 300 meters for automatic fire and 600 meters for semi-automatic, significantly outmatched the typical 100-meter effective range of Allied submachine guns. This extended reach, combined with its high rate of fire, presented a novel and potent threat to infantry formations. The strategic implication was clear. A single German rifleman, previously limited by the slower cyclic rate of a bolt-action rifle, could now deliver a volume of fire approaching that of a light machine gun. This weapon, designated the Sturmgewehr 44, represented a fundamental shift in infantry armament. The efficiency of German production methods for these weapons, particularly the MG42, became a subject of intense scrutiny in Allied intelligence circles. While initial battlefield assessments focused on its devastating tactical effects, later analysis shifted to the underlying industrial arithmetic that allowed such a weapon to proliferate. Production logs from Mauserwerk Oberndorf and Grossfuss AG revealed a deliberate design philosophy aimed at mass production, a stark contrast to the more artisanal approaches often seen in earlier German armaments. The MG42's design minimized complex machining operations, favoring stamped and pressed steel components. The receiver, for instance, comprised primarily two stamped halves welded together, a significant departure from the milled receivers of its predecessor, the MG-34. This simplification drastically reduced the number of machine hours required per unit. A detailed cost analysis, extrapolated from captured factory blueprints and material requisitions, indicated that an MG-42 could be manufactured with approximately 49 man-hours, compared to the 150 man-hours needed for an MG-34. This reduction in labor translated directly into increased output, even amidst mounting Allied bombing campaigns and resource scarcity. Production figures from late 1943 show an average monthly output of over 10,000 MG-42s, a rate that steadily climbed to nearly 17,000 units per month by mid-1944. This volume allowed the German High Command to equip not only frontline infantry divisions, but also second-line units and Volkssturm formations with a formidable automatic weapon. The strategic implication was clear. Germany could field a high volume of effective automatic fire, even as its overall industrial capacity was being systematically dismantled. The material composition further underscored this efficiency. High-grade alloys were reserved for critical components like the barrel, which still required precise heat treatment and chrome lining for durability. However, less critical parts utilized readily available lower-grade steels, further streamlining the supply chain. This pragmatic approach to material allocation ensured that bottlenecks were minimized, allowing factories to maintain their impressive output despite the tightening noose of the Allied blockade. The decentralized nature of some production, with components manufactured in various satellite plants and then assembled at main facilities, also contributed to its resilience. This distributed manufacturing model, while initially less efficient than a single integrated plant, proved more resistant to targeted aerial bombardment. Damage reports from bombed German factories often indicated that while some facilities were destroyed, others could continue component production, allowing assembly plants to eventually recover their output. The sheer volume of these weapons, coupled with their ease of maintenance and robust design, meant that even relatively untrained personnel could operate them effectively. This was a critical factor as the quality of German conscripts declined in the later stages of the war. A recruit could be trained to operate the MG-42 in a fraction of the time required for more complex crew-served weapons, providing a continuous supply of automatic fire to the front lines. The weapon became a symbol of German industrial resilience, a testament to their ability to innovate under duress. The after-action reports, collated from dozens of forward observation posts and unit commanders, began to paint a grimly consistent picture. American forces, accustomed to the predictable arcs of heavier artillery and the distinct chatter of established machine guns, were now confronting a weapon system that defied their training and immediate expectations. The initial dismissiveness, born from an almost childish comparison to toys, had curdled into a chilling respect as casualty figures mounted and tactical objectives stalled. The M1 Garand, the bedrock of American infantry firepower, proved ill-suited to suppressing the new German positions. Its semi-automatic rate of fire, while superior to bolt-action rifles, could not match the sustained volume of the MG-42. Furthermore, the German weapon's lower profile and smaller muzzle signature made it exceptionally difficult to pinpoint and neutralize, even with concentrated rifle fire. This forced American platoons into extended, exposed maneuvers, increasing their vulnerability to flanking fire and mortar attacks. Damage assessments confirmed the lethality. A single burst from the MG-42, typically 10 to 12 rounds, could incapacitate an entire fire team caught in the open. Penetration tests on standard-issue helmets and body armor showed consistent failure at close to medium ranges, rendering personal protective equipment less effective against this new threat. The psychological impact was equally significant. The sheer, unbroken roar of the weapon fostered a pervasive sense of helplessness among troops, inhibiting aggressive advances and encouraging deeper entrenchment. Production logs from German armaments factories, later captured and analyzed, indicated a sustained output of approximately 17,915 MG-42s in 1942, rising to 42,791 in 1943. This scale of deployment meant the weapon was not an isolated experimental piece, but a standard, widely distributed component of the Wehrmacht's defensive doctrine. The logistical implications for the Allies were profound. They were not facing a localized problem, but a systemic shift in the enemy's infantry capabilities, requiring a broad and immediate countermeasure. The strategic planners in London and Washington, reviewing the accumulating evidence, understood that the battlefield dynamic had fundamentally altered. The previous emphasis on overwhelming numerical superiority and methodical advance, while still vital, now required adaptation. Frontal assaults against entrenched MG-42 positions were proving prohibitively costly, demanding a re-evaluation of combined arms tactics and a greater reliance on indirect fire and specialized anti-emplacement weapons. The era of underestimating German ingenuity, particularly in small arms, had demonstrably ended. The compiled intelligence reports from the 3rd Infantry Division, specifically the after-action summaries from the Anzio bridgehead, began to circulate through the American 5th Army's command structure. These documents, initially met with a degree of skepticism in some quarters, detailed the unexpected lethality of the German MG-42 machine gun, a weapon previously underestimated due to its visual profile and early fragmented battlefield encounters. The reports included photographic evidence of bullet strikes on American helmets and body armor, alongside casualty figures that showed a disproportionate number of fatal wounds from machine gun fire compared to other small arms. Forensic analysis, conducted by ordnance specialists attached to forward units, confirmed the weapon's extraordinary rate of fire. Test range observations, detailed in a technical addendum to the main report, recorded cyclic rates consistently between 1,100 and 1,250 rounds per minute, nearly double that of the American M1919A4 Browning machine gun, which operated at approximately 400 to 600 rounds per minute. This unprecedented velocity of fire created a buzzsaw effect, as one field report described it, making evasion almost impossible once a burst commenced. The reports highlighted the weapon's stamped steel construction, a departure from traditional milled components, which allowed for rapid mass production and simplified field maintenance, further contributing to its ubiquity on the front lines. Production logs, captured from a German armaments factory near Magdeburg during a later advance, indicated that over 17,000 MG-42s had been manufactured in 1943 alone, with projections for 1944 exceeding 30,000 units. This scale of production meant that the weapon was not an isolated tactical novelty, but a fundamental component of German infantry doctrine, designed to saturate target areas with suppressive fire. The ideological implication was clear. The German war machine, despite resource constraints, was innovating in areas that maximized lethality and ease of deployment, effectively weaponizing industrial efficiency. The strategic implications of these findings were profound. American tactical manuals, previously emphasizing aimed, controlled bursts for suppression, began to incorporate new sections on the MG-42, advising immediate, aggressive counterfire and rapid movement to break contact. The reports underscored the need for enhanced body armor and more effective methods of locating and neutralizing machine gun nests, acknowledging that the previous underestimation had cost lives. The quiet understanding settled that the enemy, far from being technologically stagnant, had delivered a stark, brutal lesson in the economics of battlefield violence. The initial encounters, marked by a grim ledger of casualties, forced a re-evaluation of established doctrine. Commanders, previously accustomed to the predictable arcs of heavier artillery, found themselves confronting a weapon that defied conventional counter-battery fire. The compact size and rapid displacement of the 8-centimeter GRW-34, often deployed by a two-man crew, rendered traditional targeting methods obsolete. Field reports from the 3rd Infantry Division in Sicily, corroborated by after-action reviews from the Salerno landings, highlighted the weapon's ability to inflict damage disproportionate to its perceived bulk. Engineers at Aberdeen Proving Ground, analyzing captured examples, began to dissect the mortar's components. The smooth-bore barrel, typically 114.3 centimeters long, was constructed from high-grade steel, allowing for a robust yet lightweight profile. Its simple bipod and baseplate assembly facilitated quick setup and breakdown, a critical factor in its tactical flexibility. The firing mechanism, a straightforward drop-fire system, ensured reliability under field conditions, requiring minimal maintenance. This mechanical simplicity, combined with precise manufacturing tolerances, contributed to its consistent performance. Production logs from Rheinmetall Borsig AG indicated a monthly output averaging 4,000 units by late 1943, a figure that dwarfed the initial American estimates of enemy mortar availability. This scale of production, coupled with the weapon's effective range of 2,400 meters, meant that American infantry units were frequently exposed to indirect fire from positions well beyond the visual horizon. The sheer volume of these weapons, often deployed in coordinated batteries, transformed them from nuisance weapons into a systemic threat, demanding a strategic shift in American ground tactics. The ideological implication of the GRW-34's effectiveness lay in its subversion of traditional military hierarchies. A small, seemingly insignificant weapon, wielded by a handful of men, could dictate the pace of an engagement, disrupt troop movements, and inflict psychological strain on a scale previously associated with heavier ordnance. This challenge to the perceived superiority of American firepower necessitated a rapid adaptation, moving beyond the initial dismissive attitudes towards a recognition of a potent and pervasive threat. The battlefield was no longer solely defined by the largest guns. American units began to implement new defensive measures, emphasizing deeper entrenchment and the rapid construction of overhead cover. Patrols were instructed to prioritize the identification and neutralization of suspected mortar positions, often employing small arms fire and hand grenades against the fleeting targets. The casual disregard for the toy guns had evaporated, replaced by a grudging respect for their lethal efficiency. The encounter with the MG-42's lethal efficiency irrevocably altered the American perception of infantry small arms, particularly machine guns. Post-war analysis, distilled from after-action reports and captured weapon examinations, highlighted the need for a higher cyclic rate in suppressive fire weapons. The M2 Browning .50 caliber, while formidable, operated at a comparatively sedate 450 to 600 rounds per minute, a rate deemed insufficient for the rapid, overwhelming fire the Germans had demonstrated. Engineers at Springfield Armory and other ordnance facilities began exploring mechanisms to achieve similar firing speeds without sacrificing reliability or barrel life. The German roller-locked blowback system, while ingenious, presented manufacturing complexities that American industry, accustomed to simpler designs for mass production, initially resisted. However, the tactical imperative outweighed the production hurdles. The M60 general-purpose machine gun, introduced in 1957, reflected some of these lessons, though its 550 rounds per minute still fell short of the MG-42's peak. The true inheritor of the MG-42's doctrine of suppressive fire, however, emerged later with the M240 series, adopted from the Belgian FN MAG. This weapon, operating at 650 to 950 rounds per minute, finally matched and, in some configurations, exceeded the sustained output of its German predecessor. Production logs from the late 1970s show initial M240 procurements, numbering in the low thousands, gradually replacing the M60 in critical roles, a direct lineage traceable to the shock of the buzzsaw. Beyond hardware, the psychological impact on military doctrine was profound. Training manuals, updated through the 1950s, placed increased emphasis on coordinated fire and maneuver, acknowledging that individual marksmanship, while vital, could be negated by sheer volume of incoming rounds. The concept of fire superiority gained new urgency, defined not just by accuracy, but by the ability to deliver a greater density of projectiles on target within a given time frame. Interrogation files from captured German machine gunners often revealed their confidence in their weapons' ability to pin down entire platoons, a confidence that proved well-founded. The evolution of squad-level tactics also reflected this shift. The importance of the machine gunner as the linchpin of a fire team became paramount, with doctrine emphasizing immediate and overwhelming response to enemy contact. Field manuals from the Korean War period, for instance, contained new sections detailing methods for suppressing enemy automatic fire, a direct countermeasure to the lessons learned against the MG-42. This tactical adaptation was a quiet acknowledgement of the German weapon's disruptive power. The very design philosophy of future small arms began to incorporate elements aimed at rapid target acquisition and sustained fire, even in lighter platforms. The M16 rifle, with its 700 to 950 rounds per minute cyclic rate in automatic mode, demonstrated a move towards higher rates of fire even for standard infantry weapons, a design choice influenced by the perceived need to match or exceed enemy firepower. This philosophical shift, documented in design specifications from the early 1960s, underscored a deep-seated institutional memory of the MG-42's impact. The weapon itself, in various iterations, continued service with numerous nations for decades, its final production run in Germany ceasing in 1959.